Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Tonight we're going to be looking at Motorbooty number 9, The Strength Through Satire issue. This was published in 1999, and basically this was like the almost all comics issue of Motorbooty. Motorbooty was not a comics magazine. They always had some comics in it, just like a lot of hip magazines did in the 90s. The main editor, Mark Dancey, who did this cover, he's listed at the top of the editorial staff, so I assume he's like the editor-in-chief type guy. He draws so many comics in here. This guy is, he was a hard-working motherfucker, because not only is he, putting out this magazine, drawing like half the issue, but he was also putting out t-shirts, t-shirt designs, posters for rock bands, album covers. I'm kind of impressed with how much this guy would churn out. Kind of a fun style, very unique. I've never seen him outside of this context. I assume he went on to be a very famous graphic designer, I bet. Or hopefully he's not dead of a heroin overdose. It was the 90s after all. Let's crack this open. We have a contents page with a nice illustration by Mike Dancey. See, he's listed here as at the head of the staff column, just as white collar Dancey. So I don't know what that means. I assume he's a grand poobah here. Oh, he also does these side illustrations. And there's lots of ads for hip bands and not so hip bands. Because by the late 90s, big record labels were putting ads in these magazines and trying to get in on the alt rock gravy train. We have just an article here commenting on their 100 worst albums of the 20th century list. Strangely enough, it just seems like it's what most people would say are the best albums of all time. Beach Boys' Pet Sounds is number 1. Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, number 2. It's pretty much like that. I guess they're just trying to be contrarian. There's all these reactions to the list, people writing in. The writing in here is funny as hell. These guys are very funny. This article is about hardcore reenactors, middle-aged men who, just like Civil War reenactors, would reenact certain punk rock shows and try to do it as authentically as they could. It's pretty funny. And now we get to the good stuff, the comics. This is great. This one's written by one of the editors, David Merline, and drawn by Dancey. This is the tragic, it's perfect harmony, the tragic saga of the Louvin brothers. I don't know if you guys have ever heard the Louvin brothers. I guess he could describe it best here. Charlie and Ira Louvin were one of the most popular duos in country music history. Their intricate harmonizing, along with Ira's lightning-fast mandolin solos, due to that, they had a string of hits. But they were very hardcore Christian. One of their albums is called Satan is Real, and it's them standing in front of a giant statue of Satan. So they would kind of modulate between really old-time religion, hardcore Old Testament Christian songs, and just kind of, fun country songs like Cash on the Barrelhead and stuff like that. And we see that their father was a strict disciplinarian, kind of a wacko Christian. And as they attained some fame, as they became a singing duo, Ira went kind of wild. Now, Ira was incredibly Christian, and yet he could not resist the temptations of the world. And he was a boozer and a womanizer, but it would only reinforce this feeling of guilt, because he really was a hardcore Christian. He just kept stumbling off the moral path and then feeling terrible about it. And he became more and more erratic. Started smashing his mandolin at every show. This is like 10 years before Pete Townsend was doing that. And there's just many incidences of him losing his head and just going crazy, strangling people, just getting in arguments with people. He had like 3 or 4 wives. One of his wives shot him. He deserved it. It sounds like he was pretty abusive. And so their career hits a lull. Ira gives up the mandolin because, the birth of rock and roll kind of harshes their mellow. And their manager says, yeah, it's that mandolin. It's not rock and roll. You just got to get rid of that mandolin. And so Ira just continues to be a terrible person. Finally, Charlie, his brother, finally goes solo. He's tired of his brother's bullshit. And one night in 1965, Ira was in a car wreck and was killed. He was pretty young. Ironically, he wasn't the drunk driver, it was the other guy. For once, he wasn't drunk. Pretty interesting story. I have a little funny article. Here's a record review. This is drawn by Terry Colon, written by Mike Rubin, David Merline, and Mark Dancey. This is those are 3 of the editors. And this is kind of an interesting strip. It's like where it's all of these lines leading away from panels. Like here we see the band, each member almost like trying to be like Chris Ware, like trying to be almost like a diagram. We basically see this band, they become successful, and they put out a CD. It seems like it's pretty terrible, and they send it away to a famous rock critic, and he sells it at the local store. All the guys I knew had fanzines who got CDs to review. That was their secondary income for them. They had hundreds of CDs to sell every month because most of them weren't very good. Here's a fun story by Mary Fleener. Freaky Frequencies. And it's Mary Fleener basically talking about how like noise can really affect you physically. There's her patented Cubist style here. So she's talking about how dogs hear the spectrum of sound differently than we do. How talking about how you can do yard work at 6 a.m. and wake up the whole neighborhood. Nobody's going to call the cops on you. But if a rock band plays at 2 p.m, people freak out and call the cops. Mary Fleener recounts a story about how this place she lived in, there was like a construction going on for like a month every day. And she couldn't even think. She couldn't draw comics. The noise was just so intrusive. And now she talks about a really extreme case of like music and sound affecting your body. One night she went to see George Clinton play, and Bootsy Collins came out as a special guest. Now, Bootsy Collins is one of the great bass players of all time. I guess he played like an hour-long bass solo, which even if it's Bootsy Collins, I don't want to hear an hour-long bass solo. And it starts to make her feel uncomfortable, and she starts freaking out. It's just like how the CIA would use microwave frequencies. They experimented in that kind of shit to influence people. She says, oh my God, this is real. She started to feel like she was buried alive. And here, using her Cubist style, which is perfectly used here, to show how crazy she feels. She's like stuck in this crowd of people. She's wigging out. So finally she makes it to the bathroom to get a little peace and quiet. And she discovered to her horror that she started her period 2 weeks ahead of schedule. So it's like the bass tones rumbling through her body actually altered her body's chemistry and made her have her period 2 weeks earlier. I thought that was fascinating. I wonder if that's true. Well, actually, I don't think she's lying, but I wonder if that's a common thing. Here we see that the CIA mind control experiments using microwaves and electromagnetic signals. They thought they could control people's minds with that. She talks about the Branch Davidian showdown in Waco, Texas, how the FBI or whoever was, I can't remember the name, ATF, they would play certain signals and sounds to break them down psychologically. Screaming rabbits, a busy signal tone, they would just blast through speakers, and also certain songs. One of them was These Boots Are Made for Walking, which a lot of people I know would probably just like. It's like, hey, I like that song. Mitch Miller's another one. Buzzing Bees. She lists the 10 songs that would drive her crazy. And then she bids us farewell. Next, we have the amazing Jim Blanchard, such a good portrait artist. This is Great Badasses in American Popular Music. This is Amos Milburn. These are all pretty interesting stories. These crazy R&B guys and rock and roll, early rock and roll guys. And I guess all of his hits were about drinking. He wrote that famous song, One Scotch, One Bourbon, One Beer, that George Thorogood made into a hit. And he died really young because of that. He was just drunk himself to death. God, I love Blanchard stuff. It's kind of like photorealistic, but it's got style. It's not boring photorealistic. It still has a character to it. Next, we have Great Moments in Rock and Roll. This is another collaboration between writer David Merline and Mark Dancey. See what I told you? Mark Dancey does like every other comic in here. It's crazy. This is so great. I love this. It's just showing all these famous record company owners and managers and producers, how they just exploited the artists throughout the years. And some of these guys are like, respected, and they've won Kennedy honors, like Berry Gordy, Sam Phillips from Sun Records. All these guys were scumbags who took advantage of their artists. Like, here's an example. Leonard Chess of Chess Records, who's kind of beloved. He gave lots of black artists a chance, really promoted them. But he'd always make sure his artists had a lot of free drinks before he talked business with them. They'd come into his office if they were having a business meeting and have the secretary pass out free drinks. So they'd be pretty inebriated and couldn't really negotiate well. Just little things like that, some full-on larcenous things, but some really interesting facts going on here. Here we go again. Even the ads are by Mark Dancey. This is just an ad for Motorbooty. Next, we have Glenn Barr. I really like Glenn Barr's stuff. I wish he did more comics, but he's so successful as a, graphic designer, does album cover arts and art and stuff like that. So this is written by David Merline and Mark Dancey and drawn by Glenn Barr. Evolution of a Scenester. And this is just we see this young goofball in his parents, in his bedroom, in his parents' house, and he's falling in love with this new band, the Crummies, this crazy punk band. He's at their shows. He meets a woman. We see that the time has passed because the Crummies are playing bigger and bigger venues. Here they're at a stadium show. And now the Crummies have kind of sold out and gotten really big. He's gotten older. And now he's married. And the lead singer from the Crummies is on a Christian show like the 700 Club, talking about how, I gave, I'm a Christian now. I gave up that lifestyle. Really like this strip. It's pretty insightful. Next, we have Family Man by Terry LaBan. Not a big fan of Terry LaBan. I do like his cartooning. I just don't like his subject matter. So this is just him, kind of autobio, talking about how hard it is to develop a idea for a comic strip when you're trying to raise a kid and you're married and you have chores to do around the house. And so it's basically him going through his day of, taking the kid to school and doing some yard work and stuff, and trying to develop this idea for a comic strip. And by the end of the day, he finally has time to get to his drawing board. But he's like, yeah, fuck it. It's time for ER, which for young kids was a very popular show in the late 90s. Next, we have The Fad by Terry LaBan. And I like this one a little better, but we just see, it kind of reminds me of that Glenn Barr strip. We see this kid pick a flower and put it behind his ear. And this young hipster in a coffee shop in a band sees it. Hey, I think I'll try it. He puts the flower in his ear. It becomes the cover of a fanzine, a picture of the guy with the flower. Next, it's on TV. Next, we see people walking down the street. Even like football stars are doing it. Now we see all the like middle-aged norms are doing it at the mall. And finally, we see Nostalgia Night. And those two goofballs are all old and they're wearing their flowers in their hair, just laughing about it. We have another great badasses in American popular music by Jim Blanchard. This is Jimmy Davis. And Jimmy Davis, very similar to that Glenn Barr strip as well. He was a total sinful man. His songs in the 20s and 30s were all raunchy sex songs, like The High Behind Blues. She's a hum-dum-dinger from Dingersville. But then he found God and became a boring Christian musician. He eventually became governor of the state of Louisiana on a segregationist platform, just like Jesus would have wanted. Beautiful illustration, though. God, all these ads are making me miss the 90s so much. Most of these bands I hate, or I'm pretty sure I wouldn't like, but I still miss the 90s where all this money was flowing into the alternative scene. You could get away with murder. This is kind of weird. It's the Motorbooty Illustrated History of Pants. And this is by Mark Dancey. And we start here, Adam and Eve. They just got the little leaves, fig leaves over them, their genitalia. And then we just see how all various pants developed. From short ones, underwears, to long pants. It's very, very odd. And it almost looks like they really did a lot of research, like thought through this whole thing. Like even including like pantaloons, long trousers favored by people in the French Revolution. All shit like that. Very weird. Man, so now we got even more Mark Dancey here. Unoriginal Gangstas. And there's an imitation of baseball cards, but it's all white wrappers. And it's pretty fun. Pretty funny. It really rips on these guys. They even do the fronts and backs for some of them. Vanilla Ice, of course. Got a lot of guys I never heard of. Kid Rock, Limp Bizkit, all these guys. Rappin' Rodney. I can't believe Rappin' Rodney won a Grammy. That's fucking nuts. Once again, the backs of the cards are just, these guys are really funny, I gotta say. Even the little articles, it's a great humor mag. I kind of want to get all the Motorbooties now, even though I know they don't have, it's not all comics. Just really funny stuff. Like kind of like up there with The Onion, that kind of humor. So now we have Down with Clowns. And this is words by Mike Rubin, pictures by Mark Dancey. This was reprinted from Spin magazine. That's where this strip originally appeared. So this is just a kind of a profile of Insane Clown Posse, and more than that, they're fans. They're fanatical fans. And a lot of them are teenage boys who they just like that they get to dress up in weird makeup. It really is like, they're almost like deadheads as far as how dedicated they are to the band. They talk about their lawsuit with Disney, Hollywood Records, a Disney subsidiary, put out their album and then pulled it because some Southern Christian Baptist coalition protested the content. And so the fans react to that. But then Mike Rubin continues to just kind of talk about how the Insane Clown Posse are pretty much just, they're in the tradition of minstrelry. You know, the Al Jolson, blackface, just another generation doing their ripoff of black culture. You know, white people ripping off black culture. They kind of have a great history of it, a mini history, like Stephen Foster. You know, he wrote that song, Way Down Upon the Swanee River, like using this fake black dialect. He really gets into the nitty-gritty of minstrelry. You know, well, as much as he can in 3 panels, but he talks about how Detroit has a kind of a tradition of rock stars who put on makeup and, you know, kind of over-the-top performers. He even talks a little bit about clowning and how Detroit has this, I don't know, some tradition of clownery. They keep talking about the fans, too, and how just crazy they are for ICP. So he talks about one of their performances, and these guys would just badly rap over cassette tapes of their music and spray Faygo in the audience, the soda, the regional soda of Michigan. It sounds terrible. I've never seen, I think I've heard like 20 seconds of a song by Insane Clown Posse, but it was way later when they kind of mellowed out. It was terrible. But they sound, I almost want to hear what this sounds like. So that's pretty much it. It's not a very flattering view of ICP. So due to that, this comic was made as a reaction to the reaction to that comic. This is called Tears of the Clowns. And this is by the same creative team. And apparently, when the Insane Clown Posse read that issue of Spin with the comic, they got furious. One of them they both went on this shock jock radio morning show on the radio, you know, and they basically said, they issued a fatwa, if you will. They told all their fans, like, hey, if you ever see this Mark Dancey guy, for some reason they didn't blame Mike Rubin, I guess. It's just the artist. And he says, basically, kick his ass. And, you know, threatening him on the internet, on internet posts saying, you know, there's 50,000 clowns out there looking to find your ass, motherfucker. This one really heaps on the mockery of Insane Clown Posse. It just really makes them seem like just two fucking morons. Though they do know this. These are quotes from them. I'm not afraid to admit I'm a dumbass. We're the fucking dumbasses. If you want to holler at some dumbasses, come talk to us. So at least they know it. They have the common courtesy to recognize it. So it actually worked. This guy, Mark Dancey, started getting threatening phone calls, emails saying we're going to kick your ass. A lot of them were homophobic, even though Mark Dancey is not a homosexual. Insane Clown Posse kept calling him that because they are homophobic, and they were like, you know, this pillow biter, you know, kick his ass. So it just became, all the clowns were just like using the F word to him and stuff like that. Then he goes through like kind of a history of artists and their reactions to critics, going all the way back to Beethoven. Oh, here's Beethoven here, writing an angry letter. One critic, he wrote a letter, "Oh, you wretched heel, what I shit is better than anything you've ever thought." That's a good put down. Wagner. and going all the way up into the popular music era. I guess Michael Gira from the Swans once jerked off into a Ziploc bag and sent it to famous rock critic Robert Christgau at the Village Voice because he didn't like his review. So these are pretty fun anecdotes. Of course, there's the Sid Vicious beating up Nick Kent, that famous incident, beating him up with a bike chain. Of course, in the rap era, it got a little more intense. Full-on beatdowns of some of these journalists during the gangster rap era. Then he depicts this whole thing of the Insane Clown Posse and Howard Stern. And basically, it's a sad thing where Insane Clown Posse's talking to some call-in viewer. He basically says, the viewer's like, I'm going to come down there and kick your ass. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He says to the guy, he's like, why don't you come down here? I'll shove my clown foot up your ass. He's like, fuck you. So some guy actually came down to the studio and he called them out, and then he backed down. And the whole time, Howard Stern and Baba Booey are just making fun of them. And so one of them, Violent J, he actually lost his shit. All of this negative energy coming his way. He cut off his dreadlocks on stage and ended up staying at a mental institution for a while. So I don't know how much hate mail they got from this trip. I'm sure a lot. I like this sentiment here. Most people enjoy comics. America's cheapest amusement for over 100 years. And it shows all these people of neglecting their duties to read comics. The Exxon Valdez captain. It looks like the two guys at Dealey Plaza, two security guys. And we see the blood spray coming from the limo. Pretty funny stuff. I really like this center spread. It's by a guy named Thomas Tews, or maybe it's Thews, Thewes. And it's called Girl Power. And it's a Sailor Moon girl kicking the Hulk in the nuts. Just really interesting style. Very kinetic. It almost seems like it's vibrating, this painting. This one's fun, Cartoon Babylon. And this is by Glenn Barr. And supposedly these are famous lost censored cartoons. Just like Coal Black and the Seven Dwarfs. They're all made up, though. Chicken Hawk Charlie. And this came out after Charlie Chaplin had a shotgun wedding to a 16-year-old when he was like 40-something. And apparently, I didn't know if this is true, Louis B. Mayer, studio boss, beat the shit out of him. So that's what this is depicting. This one's called Yellow Fever, and it was an anti-Japanese film. There's many cartoons during World War II, comics and cartoons, really horrific depictions of Japanese people because they were the enemy. We were trying to, I guess they wanted to dehumanize them so it'd be easier to kill them. But in this one, Popeye is part of the Americans here trying to kill these Japanese people. Bugs versus Bugsy. And this is Bugsy Siegel goes out to Las Vegas to build a new casino. Just like in many Bugs Bunny cartoons, he's like, oh, they're fucking with my home. And then, of course, Bugs Bunny gets the best of Bugsy Siegel. Of course, the cartoon never came out because a series of mishaps landed half the Warner Brothers animation studio in the hospital with broken limbs. And here we have Weed Crazy. This is a real incident. Robert Mitchum was one of the earliest stars to get busted for marijuana in 1948. So he was sentenced by the judge to appear in this cartoon. That was like a public service announcement. And we see Coco the Clown and Betty Boop with him. I could read 30 pages of these. I love this kind of made up stuff. This is an ad for Motorbooty merchandise and Mark Dancey's stuff. And look at all this. All these t-shirt designs, all these posters he's cranking out. Just crazy. This guy, he must have been on speed or something. This is called Great Moments in Morality. Dry Detroit, 1917 and 1933. Just about the days of Prohibition. I cannot find who this artist is. I can't find a signature. It doesn't say on the contents. I forgot to mention this magazine is was edited in Detroit. So there's a lot of Detroit-centric stuff in this magazine. I didn't mention the Insane Clown Posse. That's their home city. Nice little centerfold from Mark Dancey. That's punk. It looks like the circle jerk mosher guy. Kind of nice. I like how the young punk rocker, it's two billy goats batting their heads. I think that's kind of talking about how the mosh pit was basically like this testosterone-fueled, contest. Oh man, these ads are making me nostalgic. This is The Incredibly Short Career of Duane Reade, and this is by Lloyd Dangle. Always a funny cartoonist. So this is the story of this graphic designer, Duane Reade. Quickly after graduating from art school, he's drawn the cover of Forbes and Time, winning awards from the Society of Illustrators. And he quickly just abandons his colleagues and just tries to make more and more money. But pretty soon, imitators come around, and eventually there's CD-ROMs of clip art that just to steal his art and get away with it. And so he loses all of his money. And of course, he ends up in academia as a professor, but at the age of 35. Great Moments in Mass Communication by David Merline. This is also written by Don Rice and art by Mark Dancey once again. And this is just showing how all these revolutions in communication all like basically had a tagline. Moses and the tablets, the written word, I am the Lord thy God. When Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, Mr. Watson, come here, I want you. Thomas Edison, Mary Had a Little Lamb, the first recordings. And they showed kind of the internet. Did you see Star Trek last night? That was pretty funny. Oh, this one is so great. This is Jeremy Eaton. We looked at his Sleepyhead Tale, I believe. No, we looked at his Whatnot comic about a year and a half ago. I really like Jeremy Eaton's stuff. I don't think he ever got the credit he deserved. This is Mandible Humorous and His Amazing Funny Bone in A Criminal Act. Now, this takes place in gangs of New York era, late 1800s. And we see this guy, Mandible Humorous. He's a comedian. And he's heading for some gig, a big engagement, but he's obviously lost. He's not uptown. He's in the scummiest part of the city, it looks like. These thugs, basically, they're actually in the gang, the Plug Uglies, that famous old gang. They kind of abduct him. Before we continue, I just want to say I love this first panel. Look at this janky alleyway, the lettering. And another great thing about this comic is the dialogue is so just interesting. It's so period. It's almost like that movie Miller's Crossing, where it's really rich in slang, and everyone's heavily accented because they're probably recent immigrants from England and Ireland, and just all this great, really good diction going on here. Have at my fireplace, flathead. Flimp the bastard googie. With pleasure, slops. It's really fun dialogue. So they basically abduct him, and they take him down to the cellar. They take all of his clothing and his wallet. And then he says, I'm supposed to play at this rich guy's house and the Charnot house. They think he's saying the Charnel house, which is a very popular brothel / saloon in the area. And they're like, oh, why didn't you say so? You're playing the Charnel house. We go there all the time. So they actually take him down there. And of course, this guy is just like, I don't think this is the right place. God, this cartooning is really fun. So basically he meets the owner of this place, Gallus Mag. And she basically tells him that they have a practice there. She's going to let him go on for a few minutes before the strippers. And she says, though, but we have a rule here. If you're not funny, I'm going to bite your ear off. And she even shows him a wall of pickled ears of the other guys who failed. So I guess this to explain this funny bone, I didn't really talk about him, but he's his pal. He talks. He's this anthropomorphic bone. And he's part of the act, I guess. So, the first few pages are like, why is this guy carrying a bone around in a violin case? So he's totally bombing. He has very just tame humor. These rough-hewn people do not like it. God, look at these great stylized faces here. This is some great stuff. And they start throwing tomatoes at him and drinks. And finally, Funny Bone says, I got to save our bacon because they're going to fuck with me too. So he gets up and he just starts doing really coarse humor, just basically being an insult comic. He's like, hey, Emperor, I spoke to your wifey yesterday when she rolled over in me bed. And everyone loves it. They're laughing their asses off. But the proprietress, she bites off his ear anyway. And he's thrown out in the street. And but then we see what happens to Funny Bone. And I guess Funny Bone becomes a regular there every night. And becomes the star act. Really great comic. Ah, man. Fucking Michael Kupperman, one of the funniest men alive. Captain Marginal. So this is obviously kind of a parody of the origin of Captain Marvel. Billy Batson-Sauce was a paper boy until one day he goes into this magic cave and he meets this old sorcerer. And he says, I'm going to give you special powers which will appear every time you say the word Screwpaw. Screwpaw is an acronym. And so he gives them what the acronym stands for. The S is for sperms of endearment. The K is for King Dong. The R is for romancing the bone. The E is for ET3, the extra testicle. He's like, those are porn movie titles. And then the wizard admits, I've been in this cave alone too long. I've forgotten the real list. Anyway, every time you say Screwpaw, you will become a ridiculous hillbilly with a magic mud puddle. Those will be your powers. Billy is extremely dissatisfied with his stupid new powers and vows never to use them to fight crime and injustice. This I swear. I didn't even read the whole strip to you. Every other thing is funny as hell too. Oh man, I love Michael Kupperman. This is There Goes the Neighborhood by Tristan Eaton. I don't know if he's related to Jeremy Eaton. I've never heard of him before, but he seems to have this nice old school funny animal style. And this is just the three pig story, the wolf. But in this one, the three pigs are kind of the jerks. They're these loud alcoholic neighbors. So the wolf moves away. Then they move in next to him, and this just continues. It's like an old cartoon gag. And even when he dies, goes up to heaven, the three pigs are on the cloud right next to him. Not a very original joke, but kind of cute drawing. We have another Jim Blanchard one. This is Johnny Ace. And this guy, unfortunately, had a love for alcohol and firearms. And one night he blew his head off. Probably was an accident. Sin yesterday and today. We see a man confessing his sins to a priest. Now remember, this is 1999. So now today, when you sin, you go on a talk show like Jerry Springer. And you make a lot of money. I guess it's probably still the same today. Great moments in philosophy. And this is Friedrich Nietzsche. And he's I don't know, attaining a Dionysian state? Don't really get this, but it's kind of funny drawing. Here's another Kupperman one, the Sex Blimp. I think we've looked at this before in his collection. We looked at it like 2 years ago. What was it? I can't remember the name. Sorry, guys. But if you look at the search engine under Kupperman, you'll find it. So we see this sex blimp. The captain is like, "Ahoy, matey, would you like a ride on Long John Silver's party sex blimp?" And this guy crawls over to the gangplank, His wife is all like, "Henry!" He falls off. And as he's falling to his death, he says, "Goddamn sex blimp." So ridiculous. This fake advertisement's really funny. When good guys join bad bands, and, there's 5 stages of grief with it. I think we've all been in that situation where someone you really like is in a really shitty band. And this teaches you, tips on keeping a straight face when someone plays you their tape. Diplomatic answers to the question, "What do you think?" Exiting etiquette if you're forced to attend concerts. I definitely could have used this book many times. Now we have another Glenn Barr strip. This one's written by Mark Dancey. Backstage Pass. Now this is crazy, but I literally feel like I read this just recently in an anthology maybe. But it might have not even been this comic, just the same joke. So basically it's a girl wants to meet this rock star. She has to blow every security guy to get closer and closer. Eventually, they trick her into just going out the exit. She's in this alley, all crying. Meanwhile, the rock star is performing a blowjob on someone else. So it turns out he's gay anyway. That's the joke. And just great cartooning from Glenn Barr. If anyone remembers if I recently looked at this, would you remind me in the comments and say, "Oh yeah, that was in that anthology you looked at." God, my memory's terrible. More ads. An ad for Ghost World, the graphic novel, before it was a movie. Never read a graphic novel? Try this one. And then we have a Terry LaBan strip, the author in If You Meet the Buddha on the Road. And this guy sees the Buddha walking down the road and clocks him with a tree branch, I think. And then starts beating the shit out of him. The Buddha wakes up and starts fighting back. But then this guy with the beret strangles him to death, and then the cops come, take him to jail. And now in jail, he's like a Buddha. I don't understand it at all. Fucking Terry LaBan. And here's a parody. Once again, it's Mark Dancey. Parody of the Absolute Vodka ads, Absolute Drunk. We see this guy just crawling from a car wreck. His wife is leaving with their baby, crying. So there you go, guys. Motorbooty number 9. Rereading this again last night, I was just like, this is a damn good issue. This is a pretty damn good comics anthology. Some of my favorite funny cartoonists in the world were in this. So I hope you guys enjoyed looking at it with me, and I hope to see you next time here at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.